Hi everyone, my name's Kate, and I'm just going to be talking with you a little bit about where I did my service learning project at Garden Spot Village on their memory support unit. So, Garden Spot Village is a nonprofit retirement community that is rooted in Christian values and principles. It serves the older generation with independent living and other healthcare services, including adult day services, skilled nursing, memory support, and personal care. It also serves the community with various services such as Garden Spot at Home, which is a home care service offered to residents living on campus, but also to those within the local community. And it offers assistance with ADLs, errands, shopping needs, transportation, pretty much anything and everything you can think of. And in addition, the campus also includes a WellSpan Health Center that's open to both residents and the local community. So it is a very large facility, which is part of the reason that I chose it because I knew that there would be a lot of opportunities for me to volunteer. And I specifically volunteered on the Laurel View, which is a memory support unit. And this floor is specifically designed for residents with dementia. And I chose this area because I not only love working with the elderly population, but also have a heart for this specific population, those with dementia. So I really was excited to volunteer here. I have some needs listed below. Obviously, they need assistance with ADLs, meals, medications, any health care needs they may have, any comorbidities. Consistent schedules are very important, just trying to keep them in a routine so they know what to expect. Activities help keep them stimulated. This is where I came in. That was part of my role, just to help plan and lead activities to try to keep them active, because otherwise a lot of these residents would just sit in recliners most of the day and sleep. And then also just a safe environment and providing constant supervision for them. This population could easily be taken advantage of, so it's important that they're in a safe environment. So now we're going to move into social and cultural issues seen with this population. For social, people with dementia can have difficulty holding conversations with others and therefore may be more likely to be socially isolated. And then as well, they would also might lose some social roles. They may be taken away from them because of their memory impairment, and therefore they may feel less likely like they're not contributing to their families and communities in a way like they once did. So, as I had already kind of previously talked about, my role was to interact with the residents, including carrying out meaningful conversations about their lives and playing games and whatnot, just to try to help keep them socially active and to help with that aspect. So, for cultural issues, dementia obviously affects all populations, no matter what ethnicity, cultural background. So language barriers will arise, which will be an additional challenge that will come up when trying to communicate. It can be challenging as is trying to communicate effectively with dementia patients, but adding a language barrier on top of that would be just another challenge. And then palliative care and quality of life are also very important things to keep in mind when thinking about cultural aspects. Especially because, quality, as their mental status continues to worsen, really what is quality of life, and different cultures view quality of life and palliative care differently. So keeping that in mind is really important as well. And as it's our job as healthcare professionals just to make sure that, interpreters are being used with communication, making sure we're trying to make our patients and families feel comfortable when we're talking with them, and then offering them different options on end of care life and quality of life and all that stuff, but still respecting their cultural beliefs. So now we're going to look at political and economic issues. For political, the National Alzheimer's Research Project Act, NAPA, was just recently created in 2010, and it's an annual review to address a plan to help those suffering from dementia as well as their families. And the plan must include an evaluation of all the federally funded efforts in Alzheimer's research, care, and services, as well as their outcomes. And really the whole goal of this is just to improve the prevention and treatment for patients and families, because dementia, Alzheimer's has been progressively costing more and more money. So the goal is just to try to find better ways to improve the prevention and then treatment and to help aid the patients and the families. Economically, care for patients with dementia is very costly. According to the National Institute of Health, in 2015, the total healthcare spending for people with dementia was over $250,000 per person. And these costs, as well as time spent caring for the patient, can cause caregiver strain and can lead to potential job loss of the caregiver as the dementia progresses and more time is needed to be spent away from work and at home with the loved one. In addition, as we all know, healthcare facilities are extremely expensive, and it can be challenging sometimes for family members to find a facility they can afford to send their loved ones. And in addition, it was found that out-of-pocket spending for families was over $60,000 a year compared to $34,000 a year for families that did not have a loved one with dementia. So that's a significantly higher amount of money for families are spending on their loved ones with dementia. So our role as healthcare professionals, obviously, is just to provide the families and patients with information and resources, to work with their insurance and help cut costs where we can and find suitable living arrangements for their loved ones. So the project design, as I had mentioned earlier, my goal for this whole service learning project was I wanted to work with the elderly population in some form. So I started to research local facilities, places that were close to where I lived, just for potential areas of opportunity, and then selected Garden Spot Village due to their large size, and I knew they would have a lot of opportunities for me. So I met with the volunteer director there, and we discussed the potential areas of services, came to an agreement. I decided to work in the memory care unit because I really enjoy this population. And then I met with the activities coordinator for this unit, and we discussed what my roles would be and went over goals and all of that. So moving on to project revisions, I truly was struggling with this slide because I don't really have a lot of bad things from my experience or things that I really felt needed improvement. From the unit I was working on, I think things run very smoothly there, and they really encourage involvement with family members, with the residents. But one thing I just wanted to mention was maybe considering adding a minimum age to volunteer in this unit. I wasn't sure if something like this is set in place, but it can be pretty overwhelming sometimes working with this population, especially if someone doesn't know a whole lot about them. So I had a pretty good experience or idea of what to expect because of my experience as a nurse. I've worked with a lot of dementia patients on the unit that I work in the hospital, but it can still be a challenging thing, and I know that many high school students specifically volunteer at Garden Spot Village, so I just thought maybe considering at a minimum age just to ensure that the volunteers are equipped and able to handle the challenge that this population can sometimes present. So moving on to my student objectives, the first one there is, before completing the required service hours at Garden Spot Village, I will have led 3 different activities for the residents on Laurel View. And I was able to achieve this goal as I had the opportunity to lead group activities like stretching, exercising on a few occasions. I once led a trivia game for the residents, which surprisingly, I always thought that was kind of ironic that I would be leading trivia for a group of patients with dementia, but it went over very well, surprisingly enough, and it was actually a lot of fun. And then I also would just lead smaller group activities, more individualized activities, such as folding washcloths and sorting silverware, that kind of thing. Just kind of things to keep them busy. The second objective I have is, before completing the required service hours, I will be able to identify 3 needs of the dementia population. Though I went into this service opportunity with background knowledge on the needs of this population, I gained a new perspective based on my experiences. I recognize the importance of trying to maintain a consistent schedule so that the residents are better able to know what to expect. For instance, the mornings and afternoons each day were scheduled very similarly to try to help the residents and get a feel for how the day would go. I also recognize the importance of activities at this facility. The residents are able to kind of roam freely on the unit, which is a pretty unique thing, and I think it's pretty cool. But without activity volunteers, a lot of the residents would just sit in the main living area in recliners and sleep. So I very quickly learned that activities are very important just to help keep them stimulated and get them up and moving throughout the day. A third need I was able to recognize was how much assistance they truly require. You just get little bits and pieces kind of at the hospital, I feel like, when I was treating patients, but it's ADLs, meals, medications, I mean the whole 9 yards. And like I said, I was really just reminded again of how much they can require, how much assistance they truly need. And then my third objective there is after completing my service hours at Garden Spot Village, I will show awareness of 3 professional and or leadership skills that I will be able to apply to my career. So after volunteering, I feel that I gained a few leadership skills. For example, I am now more comfortable engaging groups of people in activities and talking with them. Before this project, I'll admit I was extremely nervous to talk in front of large groups of people, but through my experience there, that has improved. And another leadership skill I gained is being more creative. I learned very quickly that each activity is not suited for each resident. So there were many times I had to get creative as to how to include the most residents with different activities and then come up with other activities that were more suitable for those that were unable to participate in that activity. So it required my creative juices to start flowing. And last, I feel that I grew professionally as I now have a better understanding of this population and can interact and will be able to interact better with them in the future. I'll be able to use these skills that I gained through this experience to help my future interactions as a nurse. So this is the slide that I'll talk about my impact on the residents. As I mentioned many times, I was able just to act as a companion for many of these residents through one-on-one interactions. There were some residents I could talk with them for an hour or two just about their lives, what it was like for them growing up. They just had so many stories, and it was so interesting to hear their perspective and how much things have changed. I also helped them with just to stay both physically and mentally active through games, trivia, other activities I led and participated in. And then also I just gave encouragement to the residents often. There were times when they would get frustrated with certain activities, and we were there just to give them encouragement and just encourage them to keep going and keep trying. So then the impact on me personally, I absolutely loved the time that I spent on this unit. I love working with this population and the elderly in general, and throughout my time I was able to make connections with the residents, and it gave me great satisfaction just to see them light up when we were talking about their lives and as they were growing up, or how eager they were to participate in some of the activities and games we had planned. I could definitely see myself returning to this unit to volunteer in the future or to work in an area similar to this. I just really enjoyed it and found great satisfaction in it. Professionally, I feel that I gained knowledge regarding this population as well as leadership and professional skills that I had just previously talked about. And I'll be able to apply these moving forward because I plan to continue working with the elderly population. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you for watching. The next slide just has a few references.